Hello, LinkedIn, and now YouTube. It is Liam Redding, Senior HubSpot Strategist with Remotish Agency. I haven't done a video in a while, but I'm going to close out 2022 with one of my best videos. I've kind of covered it a little bit, but I've been working on this idea, and I think I've got it pretty well nailed down, and I wanted to just go over really, it's a lot of value that's going to be delivered in this video across a couple of different points. But I really appreciate everybody who's engaged with me throughout the year. I started at the beginning of the year with, I think, less than 500 connections and have really blossomed to that. And I appreciate all of the feedback and all of the engagement. One of the biggest problems that I have with workflows is that goals, when you set up a goal in a workflow, the baseline information that you get out of the goal is right here. You just get the goal conversion rate with a percentage, the number of contacts that have met that goal. You can't click, even if there were contacts that had met the goal, you can't actually open those up here. And there's no out-of-the-box reporting that you can do on goal tracking, goal conversion. So today, one of the things that we're going to go over is how to set up your own properties inside of a workflow so that you can track where the contact is in that journey, as well as when they meet your goal criteria. And then you can actually build custom reporting or single object reports based off of those properties. The other thing that we're going to go over is, just because it's part of like a drip campaign type framework and a workflow that I use regularly and that I actually documented as part of our HubSpot resource library, I'm going to go over a model that I would use this in and how that can be used. So it's going to be the 2 points of value are really the drip campaign framework, as well as how you set up goal tracking. So inside of this workflow, we'll say this had some kind of enrollment criteria that would segment down to whatever segment 1 is. They would come down the workflow. We then have goal criteria. That goal criteria could be whatever you want the end result of that, the emails that you're sending out, whatever that's promoting, whatever you want them to do, whether that's filling out a form, having a deal, generating a specific pipeline, whatever that goal is, you'll set that up here. In this example, we're just saying maybe we're trying to get the segment as consulting clients, and we want them to fill out a consultation form. The first thing that we're going to do, and these are the 2 properties that we're going to use primarily to control the reporting, is going to be the date that they were enrolled. So you just create a date property, date stamp when they enter the workflow. That will then allow you to filter. So you can add that in as a filter on all of your reports. And you can either say all time, and then you can also use that date property to drill down. In this example, we created a second property called status. So this is segment 1, lead nurture status. And in this drip campaign, you have day 31 or 1 through 30, day 31 through 60, day 61 through 90. All of these workflows have the same goal criteria. If at any point the contact filled out that form or whatever the goal criteria is, they're pulled out. The reason why this is a drip campaign is that there is a long delay at the end of the workflow, and then it enrolls them into the next workflow, which contains the next 30 days. They then slowly drip down this campaign, and then if at any point, again, they meet your goal criteria, they are pulled out of the workflow. So the first workflow is responsible for both the date stamp and setting the status property. Then we would send the communication. This is the most generic version of this that you can have. In a sophisticated model, you would probably have if-then branching at some point. You maybe for further segmentation, you might also have SMS or some other task process built in as well. So they can all vary depending on what the exact goal of the workflows are. But as you can see, they're just going to continue to filter into the next. So we start off at day 1 through 30, go through the process, delay 29 days. If at any point in that 29 day they meet the goal, they're pulled. If they don't, then they're enrolled into the next workflow. The only thing we do, we don't have to date stamp again at this point. We just have to update the status to day 31 through 60, follow up with that same process, delay, and then into the final one. You can build up to really as long as you need for these workflows. I've built up to a 365-day model, which works really well. And then for this one, again, you're going to update, do the same thing. However, after the 29 day delay on the final workflow, instead of enrolling them in another workflow, you're actually going to create a dormant drop-down option on the status property and then mark them as dormant. And then there's one final workflow, and this is based on, really you kind of have to play around whether or not you need re-enrollment. In this example, you wouldn't have re-enrollment, so you'd probably have to base it off of a list. But so this part can get tricky, and that's why you have to kind of have a strategist who knows what they're doing in order to get the end result, because how you track goals and the reason why you track goals could be different. In some instances, it's a one-off. In other instances, it's on a rolling basis. Somebody could meet our goal criteria and then be re-triggered to go back down the workflow, because they meet the criteria again. That's a cyclical process. We want to be able to track that every time that happens. You would want to have re-enrollment on this. The example that I'm giving here, though, is that they have filled out that form. So we can actually, and one of the ways that people would say to do this is to base it off of workflows and to say that they have met the goal. And you could do that. So you could say, they were part of this one and it has met the goal. But I like to use the actual goal as a trigger itself, because most of the time you can build re-enrollment based off of those, whereas the workflow status, you can't use that as re-enrollment. It won't let you do that. So you have to actually build them I like to build them based on the contact properties themselves, or whatever that goal was, because essentially you can build whatever logic you can build here. You can also build it in a enrollment trigger. So I just build that out, and then I added in the workflow status to say that they have been enrolled in that workflow. And then there's kind of two things that you can do. One, you can either, and this is the simple version of that, if it's a process that a contact or object would only go down one time, then you don't really need to build in a custom object. It could still be beneficial, but you would just really need to update that property to goal completed. So then you would be able to report on where the contacts are in the journey based off that status, as well as how many of them have completed the goal and how many of them are dormant. The workflow goal is a custom object that I created. So in advanced implementation, I actually create this custom object. For example, in the example I just gave of it, it's a cyclical process. Let's say it's a win-back workflow, and you have a product, and then they stop using the product, and then maybe it's a free trial win-back. You go to win them back, they start the free trial again, or they start a membership, then they cancel it, they go back in your win-back. Every time they go back in your win-back and they come back through, you want to capture that again. And because these are contact properties, this is a contact property. If this was a cyclical process, every time they come down, it's going to update those properties over and over again. So what you would do is actually create a custom object, and then it could pass all of that data off into the custom object to store that statically. And then you could go into a contacts record, for example. It's not in this portal. You could go into a contacts record, though, and see all of the workflow goal objects that they're associated with. You could pass off, for example, we would be passing the segment 1 lead nurture status, which at this point would be, let's say they were won back in the workflow day 31 through 60. It's going to be marked at this point as day 31 through 60. That's why we're setting this after as goal completed. But it would then pass that off, and we would see the date ranges where they were in that journey when they met our goal. So that's a data point that we can get out of this. Another example of that would be the workflow name. So for this one, it would be lead nurture segment 1. You could actually save that, and when that object is created, now it's passing off 2 data points. Obviously, you could have more depending on what the process is that you're tracking, but you pass all those into that custom object, and then let's just show you what that would look like. So if you came into it in a contact object, because this workflow is then, I guess I closed it. Since that workflow is then associating the contact with the workflow goal, it would then show up here. So if it's a cyclical process, say it's a product line or something, and you want to continue to try to win them back every time they churn, every time they come down that workflow and they're won back again, it will populate here. So then you can start to build a better picture of how your workflow goals are actually contributing to your business goals. So that's the final video of the year. I hope everybody found that valuable. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Thank you very much again, and I will see you in 2023.